So I'm here with my friend Emory Colvin. I was thinking about when we met for the first time, and we met at a conference.
We did. Yep. In the green room.
Yeah. And I actually, ironically, had something that I felt like I wanted to tell you divinely about relationship.
Yep, you did.
Yeah. And I was really nervous. I'm like, I don't know this girl. And I don't know what she's going to think of me. In fact, I think that I started with like, hey, don't think I'm crazy.
A little bit. But I didn't, because I already knew who you were.
Oh,
so we have several mutual friends. So I'd heard about you for a while.
That's helpful.
So I knew how to take what you had to say. So I really appreciated it.
Although the mutual friends we have are a little crazy. So it's just like, hey, I'm in good company, right?
Yes. Aren't we all just a little bit?
Yes. All my favorite type of people are just a little unhinged, which is great. But I was so excited when you told me that you had this audiobook coming out, and I love things that help me to identify my feelings, right? Because a lot of times, and with my clients and with my students, a lot of times they don't know how they feel until they hear someone else, describing their feelings. And they're like, hey, yeah, that's it. That's how I feel. Or someone else giving them permission, to feel those bigger feelings.
Permission's huge.
Yes, permission's huge. So you have been a voiceover artist. You have been an actress.
Yes.
You were in Hollywood for a while, right?
Just a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, those are our people.
Definitely. Love them.
Yes, for sure. And so, you were in all these places and did all these amazing things, which I think is so exciting. But when I listened to, so the book is great, and I obviously read them, but when you read them in your own voice. But then when I heard them in your voice, first of all, 2 spicy emojis. Not just one.
Thank you.
Two spicy emojis. I was like, oh, all right. I'm feeling some things here. And then it was like, hey, I want to know the stories behind these poems. And so here you are.
Here I am. I'm ready to spill some tea.
Yes, I want to hear all of it. So I just want to start wherever you want to. I mean, there's so many beautiful depictions of seasons of life and things that are so relatable, things that so many people go through in this audiobook.
Yep.
And, but I want you to pick your favorites, maybe your favorite stories, or even the stories that you think would be the most relatable to the people that are listening right now.
Oh, absolutely. And I love what you said about permission. I'm just going to talk about that for just a second. I joke that I didn't mean to put my diary on the internet, but that's what it feels like. When I was writing this poetry, it was for me. I never intended to release it as a book.
That's always the best kind.
Oh yeah, that was definitely something that came later. But I was having those big emotions. I was that person, and I was like, what do I do with this?
Right.
I went on this date, and it was amazing, and I don't know what's going to happen next, or where this is going to go, or if he's that into me, but man, I'm into him.
Right.
And like, what do I do with how I feel? And that's really where this poetry was born, because I needed a place to funnel the feelings.
Yes.
And a healthy place.
And so many people don't have an outlet.
Yeah.
They don't have an outlet besides maybe their friends on the telephone, but they don't have a constructive outlet to, not just funnel the feelings and process the feelings, but to get the benefit of processing.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes. And so the permission piece was for me like, oh, God made me with a sex drive.
Hey,
I am allowed to feel these ways.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just my responsibility to manage it well.
Right.
But I'm allowed to feel these things.
Right. Let's talk about that for a second, because I think that, all of our, churchy girls that might be listening, they think that sex drive is a product of the curse.
Oh,
like this whole dance between male and female, it came as a result of not divine design, not understanding that it's part of divine design. It's like Adam and Eve were going to be doing it in the garden. They were going to be doing it before all the other debacle happened. They were going to be having this beautiful, intimate, including physically intimate relationship.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. So it's part of we're hardwired for it.
We are.
Yeah.
And it's that beauty of learning how to manage the things that we've been given by the Lord, because we do it in all these other areas. We have all these other gifts he's given us.
Yes.
And we manage those. We've been given the gift of finances. We learn how to manage and be responsible with that.
Yeah, that's a good way to
The sex drive is no different.
Right.
So as a single person, for me, I needed to be able to break off because I grew up in an environment where it was like, okay, sex is bad until it's good.
Yes.
And they would tell you, oh,
now
in marriage, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Until then, though, no.
And let's just face it. If you have absolutely no understanding of, passion and desire, then it isn't going to be amazing. And at least not at first. It's like learning how to dance together.
Totally.
Step on toes. It's going to be a little awkward.
A little bit. And you know what? It kind of is
sweaty.
anyway.
Yeah.
It just is.
Yeah, it is.
But that's okay. That's the beauty of getting to know someone and getting connected in that way.
For sure.
But I just needed the permission to feel the way I felt and know that it wasn't sinful or unholy, but it was actually a celebration of God, you made me this way.
Yeah.
And I'm allowed to feel these things.
Yeah.
I'm just also entrusted with the responsibility of managing it well.
Right.
So,
for sure. Because you don't want to use it to hurt yourself, right?
Totally. Or someone else.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But you don't just write about, sexual feelings and the blossoming of desire in that way. You write about heartbreak.
Yes.
You write about hope deferred. You write about waiting. So many subjects that I think a lot of people have in their own lives, and not even just in the area of romance, but you process them so beautifully.
Thank you.
So I would love to just start wherever you want to. I mean, which is your favorite?
Well, I have to say Mulholland is probably my favorite.
Okay.
And that's twofold. It is the first one I wrote in this journey. So I think it's maybe the fourth or fifth poem in the book, but it was the first one I ever wrote, and where I finished it and went, oh, this is good. I have something here.
Like, maybe I'm good at this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I've been writing spoken word and performing spoken word in worship. So all of my writing to that point was, for worship and for the church and faith-based environment. So this was kind of the first time I stepped out of that and was like, oh, I'm going to use this tool I've been using over here and use it to process here and just see what happens. And so it took me probably a full week to write the piece and just get it where I really wanted it.
Is that a long time? Like, I've never.
That's actually a long time for me.
Okay.
Now I'm pretty fast, and I can do something in like 30 minutes sometimes. It depends on what it is and what it's for. But for this one, I honestly relished the writing of it because that date was one of the hottest dates I've ever had.
Wow.
And so
you're like reliving it. You're like,
oh, totally. And I was like, I want to remember every moment of this because it was such a special night for me.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy was like, it had been a year. I guess we're just getting into the tea. So we'd met a year prior, and I just saw him at a wedding. And so we didn't actually meet at the wedding. But I was like, who is that? I mean, gorgeous, like blonde hair, blue eye, total dreamboat, tall, super muscular, and I just was like, I need to know who that is.
This poem's taking on a whole different meaning now.
Right. And, we're in California at this point, but he's from the South. And so he's got the drawl. I mean, I was done. I was like, great, let me meet that guy right there. But we didn't meet that night. We met after that, and we just kept having these moments of running into each other. So we weren't having these extended hangouts.
So it's like just building the tension.
Absolutely. And there was definitely interest, like on both sides, but we just never were together long enough to explore anything.
Yeah.
And led very different lives in different spheres. And if you know anything about living and working in LA, I mean, literally, unless you live in the same neighborhood, it's super hard to get together and hang out.
I bet.
So we just had a friend group that was interconnected. And so we would show up at the same birthday parties or events, whatever. So
it's starting to sound like an episode of Melrose Place.
I know, right?
It's like, the tension is building. It's purposeful. And then in episode 5, they finally get together.
Right. Yes. So this was our episode 5, where this night happened. So there was a large group of us that had planned to get together for happy hour after work on a Friday night. And we were going to this local Mexican joint down the street that we just all loved. And come, Friday at 3, we're doing the group text, and people start dropping like flies. And then there's only me and him left. And
was there ever a point where you're like, hey, let's just not go?
Well, everyone just was like, can't make it, have fun, until like everybody couldn't make it. And then it was just the two of us. And so I jumped.
How convenient.
I know, right? But I jumped out. He hadn't said anything, and neither had I in the chat. And so I jumped out of the group chat and like separately messaged him. So it was me, I did it, you know, but I was like, do you still want to go? Like, I really needed a night out. Like it'd been a crazy week at work. And I was like, I just want to go eat some chips and salsa. Like somebody come eat chips and salsa with me. And he was like, yeah, I'm down. Let's do it. So we went and.
So it's kind of an unofficial date.
Unofficial, yeah. Because it was definitely just, I mean, it was intended to be a group hang that just didn't, you know, materialize. So we go, and this is the first time we have really had one-on-one time. So over the year of, you know, seeing him here or there, I built this, and I even have this as a story or a part of the poem was I built this frame in my head of who he was and was not. Because I just was like, oh, he is this, you know, this is the box he goes in.
For sure.
And then as we spent time together over dinner, I was like, whoa. He is so much more than I thought he was.
So much more than a hot bod?
Oh, so much more than a hot bod. He had all these stories and life experience I just didn't know about. And so I went from like, you're, you know, a whole bunch of eye candy to, okay, now I'm legit interested in you. I had no idea that you lived this life, that you had these passions.
Physically, you were already attracted. Now emotionally, you're attracted.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Okay.
And he was intelligent, well-spoken. He was funny. It was bam, bam, bam. All the things, you know?
Yeah. Funny is so important.
Oh, so important. I have to laugh or it's just not going to go very far.
It's not going to work at all.
So we are just having this wonderful time at dinner, and it's clear that things are winding down and decisions need to be made on how we're wrapping up. And here was his line, gals. He looked at me and said, where's your favorite place in the city? And if you're familiar at all with LA, there is a lovely street called Mulholland. And I say street, it's not like a neighborhood street. I mean, it goes all the way through LA from one end to the other. And there's different sections, and there's the most stunning views. There's ways to pull off, park, and go look at the city.
Okay, so I'm just trying to like picture this. So like, what time of year is it?
Oh goodness, what was it? I think it was late spring, so it might have been April or May that this happened.
Mulholland.
Yes, Mulholland Drive is the street name. And so we...
so romantic.
Oh, it was so romantic. So he said, let me take you to your favorite spot.
I love this.
Because I took Mulholland to and from work every day.
And so did you feel in the moment like that is his line, like what's your favorite place to go? Or did you feel like
it didn't feel like a line? It was so, I mean, and it maybe was, I have no idea. Honestly, I don't know what he does with the girls. But in the moment, it was so, it didn't seem even premeditated. It was so in the moment of just like,
love it.
Let's take this somewhere else. Like, let's not call it a night.
Right.
And we ended up leaving my car at the, actually, no, I think he picked me up for the night. I don't think I left my car. I think he drove. Oh, wow. I know. This was a long time ago, so I'm trying to remember. So yeah, I think he had picked me up. And so he took me to Mulholland, and I never pulled off here. Because again, I drive to and from work, but I'm always going or coming home, and just, I never took the time.
Yeah.
And so he was like, let's do it right now. So we go up there, we park at the car park, and went and stood at the edge of this lookout, and we're the only people there. And I mean, it's almost midnight. The city lights are twinkling.
I'm totally just, I'm imagining La La Land right now. Ryan Gosling and
magical. Yeah. It was definitely one of those moments. And there's this light breeze that comes through, and I'm getting a little chilly, you know? Yeah. And so he gets behind me and he puts his arms around me. It was like that quintessential romantic moment where you're like, I could not have written this to be as magical as it is right now, you know? So we're just having this moment, looking at the stars, and then he just spins me around and kisses me.
Come on.
Oh my goodness, Jackie, I almost fell over. It was
good kiss.
So good.
A great kiss. Awesome.
Again, just so magical.
Because this story could have ended right there if the kiss was bad. You're like, and then it's over. And then it's a whole different poem.
Yeah, and then you're like, oh, that was not what I was anticipating. But no, it was so perfect. I mean, I literally could not have written a better meet cute, situation.
No, you couldn't have.
And there was no word spoken. Like, we were literally just enjoying the view, and it was so peaceful. And then we have, the kiss, and then this other car drives up, totally like breaks the moment. So we're laughing. Yeah,
that's real life. That's real.
Yeah, it's real life. Yeah. It happens. So we decided to wrap it up, and he was like, let's just drive Mulholland. So we drove.
Listen, I love
the
that.
City.
There's nothing more romantic than driving at nighttime with the radio on and just, were you holding hands?
Oh, we were holding hands. Oh, it was, he had his hand on my knee. I was like running my fingers through his hair. It was like the whole thing.
Was it convertible?
No, we had a truck.
A truck.
A truck.
He
Yeah.
had a truck.
I eventually
because
talked
he's
him
a
into a
country guy.
motorcycle, but you know.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So yeah,
I'm a little bit scared of motorcycles if I'm being honest, but
I'm a secret biker chick. I love it.
Look.
But
look.
I know he literally got it like right when I was moving, so I never got a ride for him. But
you were made for the leading lady in the romantic comedy.
Oh, I love it, 100%. So yeah, so we just had this wonderful evening, and then I needed to go to bed. I have got to get my beauty sleep. It's a non-negotiable. So I was like, I really do need to go home, dude. So he brings me home, and we're, at my door having just like that one last kiss moment,
But wait, the poem says that you were kissing at every red light.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We did. It was like once the dam broke, we just couldn't keep our hands off of each other.
This is a spicy
one. It was so spicy, yes.
Yes, and you have a reenactment of this.
Yeah, so this is on my YouTube channel.
Yes.
The guy is not the guy, just for any curiosity folks.
Inquiring minds want to know.
Inquiring minds
it's
want
not
to know.
him.
The actor is wonderful, though. I adore him. He's so great. But no, different
But did
guy.
you see this guy again?
So, yes.
Oh.
So this guy ended up being, and this is kind of where I want to share how we need to really protect our hearts and take.
I feel like this is about to take a bad turn.
I know. No, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
But really take what a guy says to you seriously and not think he's got subtext under it.
Oh.
So
yeah.
So we had a wonderful time. And I wondered for a while, like, is this going to turn into something?
Mm-hmm.
And we had a few other moments, and then it just didn't. Like, he didn't follow up call. He didn't follow up text. He didn't pursue me. And I had to make a decision of like, am I going to wait around for him, or am I going to just keep living my life?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, that was a really fun night. And I wish that it would go somewhere, but he's not pursuing. And I'm going to take that as a no. And I'm
you have to
keep
listen.
Going.
You have to go with actions, right?
Absolutely. So his actions informed me. And I'll say that like over my entire time living in LA, we had these moments, these back and forth moments, to the point where I eventually was like, hey, we need to talk about this. This is, the word situationship was not really around yet, but that's what we were doing.
But it totally was.
It was a situationship. And so I said, hey, we need to talk about this. We clearly have chemistry. We love hanging out together. We have a great friendship. But is this going to be anything? And so, I went to him with that question, and he was so great about it, owned his behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, and I did too, because I was participating. It wasn't like I was being strung along. I was showing up and participating in that. And when we had a beautiful discussion, and we just went, you know what, all these things are great and seem like they would work, but we want really different things in life.
Yeah.
We want to go different places.
And that's really mature.
Mm-hmm.
It's so mature to be able to talk beyond chemistry, because sometimes the chemistry is not there. And it's like, hey, on paper, we really match up. We would make a great team.
Yeah.
And sometimes the chemistry really is there like this, but we don't match up on paper. We wouldn't make a great team. We're not going the same direction.
Absolutely.
And being really mature, because a lot of people are like, the chemistry is the most important thing to me. Let me keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. It would have been so tempting for both of us to do. And I think we would have figured out how to make it work if we'd really wanted to. But thankfully, we both had the foresight to own the reality of how we felt, but also this like long term, we're going to end up hitting things.
Yeah, the crash is going to be hard when it happens.
Yeah, it would have been really ugly.
And then this would have been a different poem.
Absolutely.
Right? Because right now this poem is like blossoming something in you in the feminine.
Yeah.
Like desire and permission to feel this way.
That was such a beautiful thing that he did for me.
Yeah.
Was helped me sit in my femininity. And because I was working a job where I had a lot of masculine energy.
Yeah.
But I didn't have to do that with him. He made decisions. He was like, here's what we're going to do.
Love it.
He took the lead, and he just let me lean in to him. And I'm so grateful for that.
And I think that people don't understand that all of these little snapshots in our life, they build up to create kind of a romantic profile for us.
Yeah.
And they can be, snapshots that lead us somewhere bad, or snapshots like this that lead us somewhere good.
Yeah.
We're able to process desire and passion. And so this is an amazing snapshot. I mean, we're all there with you.
Yeah.
We're on Mulholland,
I know.
the windows are down, maybe. We're in the truck, with this, masculine country man who's in LA.
Yeah.
Right. And it's such a great night.
It
Okay.
is.
So let's go to maybe one that maybe it's not your favorite, but which one changed you the most?
Oh, changed me the most. I may have to actually go through my list here.
Which one left a mark? Which one, when you wrote it, it's because it was deep. It was real deep.
I have a couple, but I'm going to go with Spring Love on that one.
Spring Love.
So that one was for there was a guy.
There's always a guy.
All of them are about a guy. Not all. There's some about the Lord, but but yeah. So
kind of transfers.
Yeah, he was my really my first and last serious boyfriend when I lived in LA, and we met at church. And it took me a minute to get interested because he really wasn't my type. That's
something we really have to talk about.
Oh yeah.
Right? Yeah. Beyond the attraction style.
Yeah.
Because sometimes our attraction style is not good. Yeah. And you could have the blonde, blue-eyed truck dude attraction style after that experience. Wow, I never felt things like this. And now I'm going to compare everyone to it.
Oh, totally. So yeah, so this guy was very different. He had a totally different profile. And he had a, for lack of a better word, a kind of nerd job, which honestly, I love that stuff. So I wasn't intimidated by that. But yeah,
we can't count the nerds out.
Oh, no. The
nerds can get super hot.
The nerds can get super hot.
For sure.
I mean, there's some things about that where I'm just you can do this stuff and I don't understand it. Help. Again, you're sitting in your feminine, right?
Right, for sure.
Masculine assistance.
Yes. Acts of service is a real love language.
It is a real love language.
For sure.
But yeah, I mean, he was such a great guy, but again, just not what I would normally go for. And one of my girlfriends was really championing him and was just look, he's into you. Give him a shot. You have nothing to lose. And it took me a minute, but I finally was like, Emory, you really don't. Why are you, again, I was making it so high stakes.
I'm going to talk to myself in first.
I do.
Emory?
I call myself M sometimes. And I was coaching myself the other day and one of my girlfriends was like, you call yourself M? And I was like, yeah, what do you call yourself?
You call yourself M?
We're on nickname basis over here. Yeah, I was just why am I making it so high stakes? I don't have to marry him. This is literally just a date.
Yeah.
So I was get out of your head and just go have some fun.
I love you telling yourself the right thing.
Oh,
Get over it, girl.
I know. I didn't have you yet, so I didn't know better. But I just was okay, I'm going to just go for this. So we went out and I was salsa dancing at the time, on a team. I loved dancing.
On a team.
Oh yeah, girl. I was put me on a team. Let's do performance. I loved it. So this guy also salsa danced. If you can dance, I mean, I'm in. I just am in. I didn't know at first. And so when he took me dancing for our first date, I was
if you can dance and you're heterosexual, then you're in.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
Because I've been with some dance instructors and not all of them like people like me.
Yes. You do have to get clarity there.
Yeah, I got to get a little clarity.
But he was already into me, so I felt good about the situation. So we go dancing, and it was so funny because he didn't remember saying this, but we're dancing, and he literally said out loud, I want to hold you against me.
Oh, no.
And let me tell you, and I know what you're thinking, but in that moment, because I was so undecided on how I felt, but that measure of assertiveness in that moment, I was like,
oh, of course. That's hot.
It was so hot. So I was like, all right, cool. We're going to date and see what happens.
So he kind of said it under his breath. He said it in your ear.
Did. Okay. Well, it wasn't in my ear. I don't he did not remember saying it. He just was I did that. And I was
he was externally 100%. Processing.
He was. And he missed that he did it out loud, So it was very hot. And I was like, all right, okay. So we start dating and I mean, so much fun. He was a really great guy, super generous, always coming up with creative dates. I felt like $1 million. I felt like I was getting pursued. It was so, so beautiful. And now the key is he had had a prior relationship that had really deteriorated in a devastating manner. And I knew about that. And he'd been real open and vulnerable about it. But there was still some, hurt there.
Of course.
And I didn't have any expectation of someone coming to me like totally healed. I mean, that would be ideal, of coururse, but not everybody's going to be in that spot.
I don't really think it's possible because hurt in relationship, healed in relationship. We're going to be part of someone's healing if we choose to be together.
Yeah. So this guy just had some of those wounds and they started to pop up. And I will also own the fact that I wasn't emotionally healthy. And so I was feeding some of those wounds, not knowing that that's what I was doing with my behavior, but I was operating in some of my woundedness, triggering his.
We're actually going to poke each other's wounds.
Oh yeah, it was bad. It was bad. Except we were not salvageable once we started the triggering and the poking and the woundedness. It was not pretty. And so it devolved quickly.
It disintegrated quickly.
Oh yes. So I'd actually started writing this poem as a gift for his birthday. So you'll notice the first few stanzas of Spring Love feels very upbeat and positive, and then a twist happens. And because our first date was a salsa dance, I wrote it as a deconstructed dance. And so any of you who know dance language are going to pick up on the fingertip connection and spinning and needing to meet a gaze at a spin.
I see that now. I mean, I'm not a dancer, but I see it, and it is a powerful poem.
Yeah, the metaphor to me was so perfect for what actually happened in the relationship. Because if you think about a dance, when you are dancing well with a partner, you're lockstep, you're eye to eye, your bodies are moving with each other in this beautiful synchronous manner.
I like to talk about marriage as West Coast swing.
Yeah.
Where both partners are super creative and no one's really leading the entire time. We're just we're taking cues from each other. Because I watch all those dance videos where they don't know what the song's going to be and they don't know what the partner's going to be. And then they get assigned.
Yes.
And just to watch them take cues from each other and just, make it happen.
You have to.
It's so incredible.
Absolutely. Though. It's beautiful. When I was dancing salsa, I had certain partners that were my favorite.
Right.
Because they knew how to give strong cues. So I always knew what to do based on the cue I was given. And when I had a strong leader like that, I was like, oh, I know what to do. And I'm safe doing it because he's telling me I'm going to push you out for a turn, which meant that I could do like a little thing with my right hand.
And that's what good marriage looks like. When you tee the other person up to be the best version of themselves.
Yes.
They're giving you that strong cue, like, hey, you get to do your special turn right now because I'm teeing you up for it, right? It's just and
so beautiful.
And you see in the poem where it switches.
Yeah.
And you aren't expecting it. You're not expecting it to happen. And then all the symbolism of our fingertips. The connection was broken.
Yes.
And then the light goes out of his face and, and then he hardens up on the outside of the poem. I mean, it's really, in fact, I think you should just read that part from when it shifts, I think that it's like I said, it's unexpected, but it's just like, wow, that's really what it feels like, where we were just in sync and everything was going great. And then all of a sudden something happened. And a lot of times my clients and students will be like, yeah, I don't understand. They're starting to pull away. Their communication has changed. They used to call me this, babe, or, good morning. And now it's, I get two word responses to my paragraphs of text messages that I send them. It's like there's a shift, and the feelings that shift bring, it's very heartbreaking.
Oh, 100%.
So why don't you read that?
Where do you want me to pick up?
Right when it begins to really be evident that we're not going to get back in step with each other.
Okay. All right, here we go. Faces like flint, heels dug in, ready to fight, ready to win. Or so we thought. The song changed and the dance shifted. Uncertain of the steps, we lost our rhythm, both fearful of stepping on toes. You tightened your grip. I held on, not wanting to slip, but you spun me. Turn after turn. I needed your gaze to meet mine with each twist so I wouldn't get dizzy, but your eyes were downcast, stuck somewhere in your past. The last turn was tight and furious, and then our fingertip connection was broken. Under my breath, I heard myself say, I can't do it this way. I knew by your face you felt the same, your handsome smile replaced by tight lips and hard eyes, such coldness wrapped in one brief moment. We stood face to face with no words left as the hopes and dreams we'd shared began to disintegrate. With sadness in our hearts and disappointment in our eyes, we surveyed the ashes and turned to go our separate ways in utter surprise. It wasn't supposed to end this way.
And that is how so many people feel. They get, I just had someone message me the other day and they said, I should have known better than to get my hopes up so high about this one.
Wow.
Right? And how do we live with that level 10 hope, knowing that it could end like this? Like, how do we hold those two things in the same space, right? And that kind of leads us to one of, I think, the best ones here, right? Because it's so relatable. And so many people use this phrase with me that my hope's been deferred. And you actually have a poem about that.
I do.
So let's talk about that.
Girl, this is where it gets real.
Right.
All right. So Hope Deferred came. I wrote it in 2020. I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic, right? It feels like the world is falling apart.
Right.
But prior to that, I had met this guy. It was the summer of 2019. And there was just something about him. And I was like, okay, I think I could date this guy. So he felt the same about me. So we went on a handful of dates and I loved being with him. We like immediately had this great connection, great friendship, but we just didn't have a lot of chemistry. And so it was one of those things that I was like, and both of us, I mean, him too, we were just like, do we want to move forward or not?
And when you say chemistry, you mean physical.
Physical.
Just purely physical.
We had, purely physical.
Because you're saying
chemistry in every other area.
We're just like potential best friends because we get along so well.
Loved. I mean, we would run errands together. I mean, just like, I was like, I want to hang out with you today. Like, I want to be with you.
I want to be with you. I want to be in your presence.
But we weren't necessarily like wanting to make out all the time.
Be all over each other. You want to be with each other, but not all over each other.
Exactly. That's how it was. And I ended up actually booking a tour where I was going to be gone for like 3 months. And so, he initiated the conversation of like, hey, this is where I'm at. And with you leaving, I don't know that it's a good idea for us to keep trying if we don't have this component dialed in right now.
And, a lot of people get stuck right there. Like, how long should it take for me to feel something? Like my mind is engaged, my emotions are engaged, but my body is, hesitant. My body doesn't really know what it thinks about this. So it's like, how long should I wait for my body to get on board?
Totally. And I mean, had the tour not happened, I mean, who knows how we would have handled that. Right. But with the thought of being away from each other, that felt too challenging.
Yeah.
And, we both had been really hurt. We had been in previous relationships where our hearts had been broken. And I think we were both being very guarded with each other.
Did he know about your poems?
These were not out yet. Okay. So I don't honestly
I was
don't
like,
know.
he might not want to become a poem.
I know.
It's like a Taylor Swift song. He's like, I want to date you, but I really don't want to be one of your poems.
Yeah, I don't think I'd really shared. I mean, I had done an event where I shared these, but only like 4 of them.
Yeah.
And he was not at that event. And so I don't know if he really knew a lot about my writing at the time. So I go on the tour and here's what I hope helps more than one listener out there right now. Okay. Just
definitely one.
Hear this part of the story. So I go on this tour, right? And while I'm gone, a friend sets me up with somebody who I meet at one of the events. And we like go out after the show.
Oh, you have a lot of helpful friends.
I do. I'm so blessed.
You do.
So this guy, he's from the same like church environment and, we're about the same age, definitely same value systems. We meet. He's super handsome. Great, great guy. Actually should introduce him to you actually.
Oh, please.
Now that I'm telling you.
Just to clarify, I am married.
Yes, no, of course.
But because I'm a matchmaker, that's why she wants to introduce him.
Yes, we'll get more into that.
Yeah, let's clarify that.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
So anyway, he's this great guy. So we start texting and calling and getting to know one another a little bit as like a potential, connection.
Like on this tour.
So obviously we moved on from the city that he was located in, but like we met the night I was in his city and then just kept in touch as I was continuing my travels. And he had.
So let me ask you: when you met him in person in that city that you were touring, was your body on board immediately? Did you have a?
I mean, he was attractive.
Okay.
But it wasn't, I didn't have, like the, ooh.
The feelings.
Yeah.
The butterflies.
Yeah.
The things.
No
Okay.
butterflies, none of that.
Gotcha.
But I mean, I just was like, oh, he's a good looking guy. You
Yeah.
know? Okay,
All right.
I'll talk to him.
Okay.
So the more we get to know each other, it was like my soul started to stand up and go, but he's not so-and-so.
Oh.
And I went,
maybe there's something there that wasn't there before.
yes. And I was surprised because I thought I was okay with ending things.
Yeah.
And I went, oh.
Absence makes the heart grow fonder sometimes.
Well, and there was something about him because this other guy's great.
Because it's
zero things wrong
juxtaposition,
with
right?
him.
Juxtaposition. You have something to compare him to.
But I just went, wait, my heart's telling me something I didn't know was in there.
I love it when our hearts do that.
Oh, it was a moment for me of like, wow, I didn't know I felt that way. This is new information. What do I do? And so, of course, I had this whole tour to like process. And then we ended up having some shows cancel. So I was home for like a week and I saw the first guy. I saw him when I was home. And it's funny because I saw him twice. And the first time I was like, nope, we made the right decision. I'm good. We're good. We're good.
So you saw him, you're like, no, it was just, listen, it was just being away. It was just a little bit of like, oh, what if? Yeah.
But then I saw him a second time the same week and I felt it again. And I went, oh, no, we got to deal with this. I think I have feelings for him.
I'm catching feelings.
Oh, and then I was just like, but I still didn't have the butterflies or the like, it wasn't that.
Look, there's so many better
like,
indicators of attraction than butterflies.
Yeah,
there really are.
And I had to learn that. Like our whole relationship was this journey of me learning like what was actually important to me. Mm. And the more I got to know guy number one, I just was like, this is the father for my children that I want. Like, this is the kind of man
you're like,
I can do hard things with. Like, I just was like the character he has. And like,
this is someone I want to partner with for my life.
Yes. For the first time, Jackie, in my life, I went bigger picture. Like, I was like, no, really, I can do life with you.
It's so important.
And that was a game changer for me. And so I ended up resolving things with Guy too, because he was wonderful again, like such a great guy, would totally set him up with anybody.
It didn't even get off the runway.
It really didn't.
It didn't.
But I just, in good conscience, couldn't move forward there because I had these
I think
feelings.
that's so great because the bottom line is that a lot of us, when we are face to face with what we think is our list person, because you said he checked all these boxes, a lot of times we're not. Like there's not that attraction that we expect there to be if we ever met the person that we think would be a great match.
Yeah.
And then there's this other person that doesn't check some boxes. And maybe, like you said, we don't have the overwhelming like, woo. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, we're like, man, I could partner with them.
Yeah.
They would be a great teammate. I feel like, I could see myself old and wrinkly, doing life with them.
Yes. Yeah. So when I came back from tour, we ended up getting back together and just trying
who instigated that?
So it's a funny story.
Does this story have a happy ending? Because I'm too invested now.
Yes, it does. It does.
Okay.
But there's bumps. There's definitely bumps. So I came
Why do
back,
I feel like I'm in an episode of How I Met Your Mother?
I know.
Or an episode of that other, what's that movie with what's his face where you don't know which woman is actually her mom, like the story of her mom?
Oh, I don't know.
Gosh, Love Actually.
Oh,
yeah. Where you don't know which one is the story he's telling about the woman he picked.
That's true. Yeah.
Right. So that's what I feel like right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So I came back from my Christmas tour and we had already agreed with a friend group to spend Christmas together.
Okay.
And so we were going to make a meal to bring to Christmas Day dinner on Christmas Eve. So he was over for Christmas Eve. We're cooking, making a meal. And he made the move and he kissed me.
You're cooking together?
Yeah. So we weren't back together at this point.
Yeah.
But he just went ahead and made the move. I was like, I'm just going to kiss her and see what happens. And so
I'd love to know what was in his brain. I wonder if he was just like, let me kiss her and see if I feel anything. Let me see if I feel fireworks.
I think that was kind of in both of our brains.
Sparks, yeah.
But I had feelings at that point, even though they weren't necessarily like the chemistry feelings. My heart had caught the feelings.
You had like a knowing.
I did. I really, really did. And so it was, for me, it was like, okay, finally we've broken that barrier because we didn't kiss the first several dates that we went on. And so it was like, okay, let's feel this out, whatever. So we ended up getting back together.
Okay, but like, how was the kiss?
I mean, it was good.
Okay.
It wasn't lightning bolts. And
Right.
he would tell you the same thing, you know, but it was nice. It was like, hey, I can do this. Like, you don't feel like my brother.
I wasn't repulsed by it. It doesn't feel like you're my brother,
totally.
you know, or Uncle Ralph that, you know, gets a little bit too handsy.
Yeah.
You know, we're either going to have real talk or we can't be together. Okay. All right.
You're so funny. So so we had this kiss and we just were like, let's do this. Let's just give it another shot and see what's going to happen. So we got back together and we were together for a little over, or maybe right at 2 months. And then we broke up again. And he just could not get past.
Okay, wait. Who broke up with who?
He broke up with me.
All right.
And
what was the reason?
He could not get past not having the chemistry.
Okay.
So
not wanting to feel like he wanted to jump over the table and just make.
He wanted all the butterflies and all that. Yeah.
A lot of people need that.
Yeah. And
I need it.
I understand it. I totally do.
Because
it was something I was wrestling with myself, but I had already made my decision on like, you check all the boxes of things I want, and I'm not going to bypass something just because this one thing's missing.
And, you know,
I
one of the
like
things I want people to look at is like, I ask people this question, like the hot, you know, hot and bothered, I'm so excited, my body is like level 10 interested. How have those relationships worked out for you in the past?
Yeah.
It's like, because people are like, it is really a key because all of them crashed and burned.
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, maybe we should take a look at that.
We go back to Mulholland guy, case in point.
Right.
And thankfully, we just had the wisdom to bypass the destruction.
Yes.
But had we gone down that road, that's what would have happened.
Oh, for sure.
You know? I'm so thankful to like be on friendship level with him, you know, like we did not have this terrible ending and it's a great memory and that's what it is.
If your body is the first thing to get on the love boat with the person, then that, to me, that's where you have to actually take a deeper look. Like, is this actually healthy?
Yes.
If your body is the thing that's like, woo, let's go. Okay. Because if your soul and your spirit are kind of lagging behind, then there's probably a really good reason why.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So we broke up second time. And
were you like, okay, the first time you were like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I agree.
Yeah.
This time, how did you feel?
This time I was heartbroken because I really felt like I was going to marry.
Yeah. You had the knowing.
I had the knowing.
But it wasn't turning out to be right because he broke up.
Oh, it was very confusing. And believe me, God and I had many conversations around this situation. And so this is a long story to get to the point here. So Hope Deferred is the poem I wrote after our breakup because I had an unhealthy placement of hope. And this is what the Lord revealed to me, that I had put my hope in being married as opposed to putting my hope in him. And
this poem takes on a whole nother meaning when I hear the story behind it. I'm so glad that you're telling the story behind it, because people have hope deferred in all areas, not just romance.
Oh, totally.
In getting pregnant, in a job promotion, in, you know, someone's healing.
Yeah.
You know, it can just go, it can run the gamut.
And we are called to have hope, but it's because hope is placed in Christ in you, the hope of glory, right? So scripture already tells us Christ is where we're hoping.
Right.
And so our hope is secure and safe in him. It's when we put our hope in other places that disappointment occurs.
Yeah.
And not that, I mean, we are always going to have loss and disappointment in our lives. But if we keep our hope rooted in Christ, then we have a way to process that healthfully, as opposed to our hope being latched onto the thing that we're losing or not having. And then our hope sinks and we're not able to walk fully in faith, believing in the goodness of our God to provide for us like he said he would in his word.
And, you know, when we look at that scripture about hope being deferred, the word defer actually means to suspend something or to postpone it to a later date. And what I find a lot of people do is that they want something so badly and they want something very specific to be what happens in a scenario, whether it's the romance, whether it's the healing, whether it's the job, the baby, whatever it is. And when the signs don't point to it happening the way that they are expecting it to happen, what they do is they postpone their hope. They set it aside. They put it on the back burner because they're suspending it until they have evidence that it's safe to continue to hope. But the thing is like you and I know, it doesn't often happen the way that we've pictured or imagined. So what happens during that deferment process is the next part of the verse says it makes our heart sick or it breaks our heart. So essentially we're breaking our own heart, but then sick hearts go looking for medication. So in this deferment process, what we do is we go medicate ourselves, you know, with with someone who ain't healthy for us, right? Or we, I know a guy who, a woman broke his heart. He went to propose and her father said, no, you're not good enough for our family.
Oh.
And so up until that point, he had, a really robust relationship with God. But after that, he went down a dark spiral of just not even living his faith because of the hope that was deferred there, the hope that he deferred. And so a long time ago, God showed me the word disappointment. The word dis means to remove, right? So what happens in disappointment is whatever you've appointed as the magic bullet of happiness, it gets removed from that pedestal or that position because it doesn't turn out the way you expected. And it's good because that gives us an opportunity to reappoint, the right things to the right places, right? And so that's what you're talking about here.
Yeah, and the Lord just so kindly and gently walked me through that in the circumstance.
He's so kind. Yes.
I mean, he was so gentle in showing me that my hope was in the wrong thing and then helped me move it back to its rightful place of in Christ, where it's safe.
Right.
And that's where the poem Hope Deferred came from, was just my journey and going, oh, I have misappropriated my hope and I got to get it back on the right track here. And that will actually help my heart heal.
It will.
And so,
because it's safe to hope in, if this isn't for me, something better is for me.
Yeah.
Right. It's safe to hope in, you're for me and life is for me. And regardless of whether things work out the way I'm expecting, a lot of times you give me the best thing I never knew I even wanted.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And so does this story have a happy ending?
It does. So
tell me.
So let me tell you this real quick because it'll play into the end of the story. So Hope Deferred was such a powerful poem. I began to share it. People were having me in on podcast interviews, things like that. And I began to share it and read it. And people were God was talking to them through it. They were just having these encounters with the Holy Spirit. And it was a powerful poem. People would just cry and weep as I would read it. It was one of those things where I went, okay, God, you're on this so much more than I realized.
Yeah.
So I knew I had to make a video of it so that it would be more readily accessible than just in this book. And so a friend of mine offered to help me put the video together and film it to get it on YouTube. So we drove up to Lassen National Park, and I live in Redding, California, and just north is beautiful
area.
Lassen.
Yes.
And there is a lake called Lake Manzanita up there that's just stunning. And so we found a spot right on the lake with the mountains in the background and did a whole storyline. It's like a fairy tale storyline.
I've seen this video.
With Hope Deferred.
It's amazing.
So we shot this video there. So that was in, I think, November of 2020. So prior to shooting that, COVID happened and things got crazy. We've been broken up, hadn't talked for a couple months. And then one afternoon, there's a knock on my door. And it's the guy.
Oh.
And we hadn't talked in a while, and it was a total surprise. And it was just awkward time, weird time. Like, we've never been through a pandemic before, so he's just like, "How are you doing?"
Okay, so I know from experience when things don't turn out the way that I want them to, God says one or two things. He says, "Let it go," or He says, "Just wait."
Yeah.
Which was for you?
So He told me to wait, and I said, I was like, I don't know if I could just wait.
He told you not to. He didn't tell you to stalk.
Yeah.
He told you to wait.
No, he did. He told me to wait. I didn't like stalk for sure, but it was uncomfortable.
Of course.
I was older.
Yes.
I was 39.
Right.
And I was like, I want to be married. So if this dude is not it, let's deal with it and move on.
For sure.
Because I want to be ready and available and healthy for Mr. Right.
But what a lot of times people don't realize is that, first of all, there's no waiting rooms in the kingdom. So God's never telling us to wait. It sounds like that because that's a word that we understand. But really what He's saying is that I have some more preparing to do. Yeah. It's a preparation time, right? It's not a waiting room. It's a preparation room.
Yeah.
Or sometimes a birthing room, if we're being honest. It's pretty messy. There's a lot of body fluids screaming. There's a lot of things that happen in that process.
Yeah,
because when God gives us a promise, He gives us a process.
Yes.
And so He's saying, hey, I'm still in process on this.
Yep.
And then the knock on the door.
Yep. So He knocked on the door and we reconnected and decided to reestablish communication because I'd told him when we broke up, I was like, I need a hard out. I can't stay in connection with you.
Clean breaks heal the fastest.
Yep.
Yes.
And so it had been, I think, about 2 months at that point that I was like, okay, I think I can maybe try re-engaging friendship here and see how it goes. And so we just started that.
Because that was something you guys were good at. You were good at being friends.
We were great at being friends.
Right.
So we just went back into that very easily. And there are a few things the Lord had done in both of us during the time that we were apart that was really helpful to help us move forward and re-engage. And by May, we decided to get back together one more time and just give it a go. And it was beautiful.
Okay, wait. Is the story about Jake?
The story is about my husband, Jake.
I love it. I totally wanted this story to be like not, okay, we learned something.
No,
we both our separate ways. Like, good luck, Chuck. He was the person before the person.
No. This was the real deal. And the beautiful moment was he invited me on a hike a few days before my 40th birthday and took me up to Lake Manzanita. And in the exact location that I filmed the video for Hope Deferred is where he proposed to me. And so
did he know that?
He did. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He knew the location.
I was like, whoa.
Yep. So it was just such a full circle moment for me. And you know, I've said things like I got hope fulfilled and where I filmed Hope Deferred, but I want to make sure that I also clarify like hope is in Christ. He gave me a fulfilled hope of a dream in that location.
Yeah.
But he taught me that hope is ultimately in him, not in the thing I'm hoping for. And going through that journey of relationship has helped us even in marriage, because once we got married, we found out that I had some infertility issues.
Okay.
And have been walking that journey. And I've been able to have hope in Jesus for my healing and for pregnancy, because I'm not hoping in the pregnancy. I'm hoping in Christ and his ability to get me there. So
you learned a lifelong lesson that you're going to apply to so many different things.
So many things. Yeah.
And it's going to help you to understand that if it's not now, then it's not this, then it's later and it's something else.
Yeah.
Right? Because we've been created to thrive, not survive. We've been created for abundance, right? For joy, for hope. You know, hope is one of the eternal things.
Absolutely.
The Word of God says that hope's eternal.
It is.
And so, so it's not a situation where you just need it now. It's something that's going to hold you through eternity. Like it's going to be
That's such a beautiful thought, isn't it? What are we going to hope for in heaven?
Yeah, because heaven sounds boring, according to a couple people that I've heard like describe it. I'm like, oh no, that's not my heaven.
Not a chance.
I'm not into that. I'm into learning and discovering and growing. In fact, I feel a lot of times like this life is a childhood where we're meant to fall down and scrape our knees and learn and grow and mess up and have grace, to go to the next level. And, for me, that's what heaven looks like. It's continually learning and growing and stretching, because otherwise how boring.
Totally.
If you knew everything, if you're fully arrived, like what? What are you going to do now?
Oh, we're always going to be learning. That's how we're created to be.
Yes.
And honestly, writing this book, Jackie, was such a learning experience for me. This was how God got me emotionally healthy and ready for marriage, was by learning emotionally healthy processing tools by writing. It was a beautiful journey, but I tell you, I wish I had known you. I really wish that I could have done heart work with you. And I mean, there's so much that you have brought to the table. And so I thank you so much for, sharing about my book and about these poetry.
Oh, no.
My poems.
I feel like this is so important for people to understand that their situation, their experience, their human experience, that it's wide and it's far reaching, that so many people experience so many things. Like, it's like hashtag me too. And people need to know that.
Definitely.
Because I feel like it's not talked about enough, especially in church environments. Because if you start to express this kind of stuff to the wrong person, it's like, well, you shouldn't feel that way.
Yeah.
You obviously don't love God enough. If you're having all these human emotions about human people, then you don't love God enough, because that's the only important thing.
And
not
it's
understanding.
So not true.
It isn't
so
true.
Not true.
It isn't. If God was enough for us, then Adam could have just stayed by himself in the garden. He should have been alone there. But God's the one that said, oh, we're not enough. Holy community of heaven. For Adam, he needs his own kind. He needs to connect and understand us in a way he would never be able to understand unless he saw us with skin on it. Right? Oftentimes I call my husband Jesus with skin on it.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Because skin on him, because, he shows me grace and mercy and love in ways that, are hypothetical, I hear that God loves me that way, but when humans show up, like God is the source, but he's the head of the human resource department.
Yeah.
So he sends human resources to show us and kind of put an exclamation point on his love for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my hope and prayer is that people see themselves in these poems.
They will. They definitely will.
And that they feel encouraged. And there's Psalms in here of just my wrestling with God. And I have a whole poem in here called Waiting, where I'm just like, oh, what are we doing? Where is he? When is this happening? But I have the freedom to have,
relatable for so many people.
I had the freedom in my relationship with God to ask those questions, to wrestle that out with him, and still have him be enough for me in that moment.
Right.
But I can talk to him about how it doesn't feel like it.
Yeah. You have to have the smite me almighty smiter talks with God.
Oh, yeah.
From Jim Carrey, from Bruce Almighty. You have to have that where it's like, you don't know what's happening. You don't understand. You're frustrated. You're upset.
Mm-hmm.
God and I have had some definitely like kick out, drag down fights, and I recommend it. I highly recommend it because I've come out of those moments understanding that he is God and I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
And so, my ego is not in the way anymore. And I realized that I've poured all these very violent emotions out on him of frustration and hopelessness and all these different things. And I've gotten back from him just peace.
Mm-hmm.
He's shown up in those moments. He's not disturbed by
he's
not disturbed by all my craziness.
He's the one who can handle it.
And so many people need to know that though.
Mm-hmm.
They think that they have to show up and only tell God what he wants to hear. I love you. You're good.
He already knows
I
what
trust
you're thinking.
you.
Just be
when
real.
None of it's really that true.
Yeah.
You don't really believe he's good because, things have not been good in your life.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I first met Jesus and I found out that he was omnipotent.
Mm-hmm.
When I first met Jesus and I found out God is a spirit and he's omnipotent, which means he's everywhere and he's all knowing, I was ticked off when I found that out. Because I was like, oh, really? So you were there when this happened and that happened and this happened. Oh, why didn't you stop it? Why didn't you help me? That's how I felt about it.
Yeah.
And that's when I started to understand and realize what we've kind of been talking about here, that sometimes there's a bigger story, a more important thing that's happening, because we're going to suffer in this life. We're going to have pain.
Yeah.
But the more important thing is that what are you going to carry after it? What purpose are you going to carry after it? What prompts? Because suffering and pain is a non-negotiable in this life. You're going to have
100%.
it. You're going to have it. But is it going to be worth it? It doesn't have to be easy, life, but is it going to be worth it? Are you going to carry something that you weren't carrying before?
Yeah.
Like you and I talked before we got on here about grace, about paying the price to carry what you carry. Like these poems, each one of these, you have processed some deep pain, some suffering, some trauma. And because of that, you now have this book and this audiobook that you can put out that other people, they can heal from.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't have been able to carry that balm if you hadn't experienced these things.
It's so true. And I honestly didn't realize the depth of that until recently, just literally like last week. A fellow who has bought my book and taken some classes with me messaged me on Instagram and said he's going through a difficult time in his journey. And he said that he keeps my YouTube channel on at night and just lets it play because the words are so healing to him.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, I had big fat tears in my eyes because I just thought, wow, like God's given me this gift and he gave me these words and they're helping someone else heal on their journey.
Yeah.
And I think I knew that was happening on some level, but to have someone who has shared some of their story and journey with me just say, this is what this is doing in my heart. I just lost it. I mean, I'm so humbled to be in that
pours
position.
That liquid gold in the cracks, right?
Yes.
That's what makes it a beautiful mosaic. And that's what makes it worth it.
Yeah.
Oftentimes I'll think about my past and the things I've been through. And, I got a lot of mugs and t-shirts from a lot of bad rodeos. And I look back and I'm like, this is what makes it worth it. I wouldn't know what I know. I wouldn't have the ability to do what I do. Like I'm such an unlikely candidate to do what I do with reviving marriage and family, being a matchmaker, being a dating coach. Everyone in my family has been divorced many, many, many times. My biological dad, who didn't raise me, but I'm beginning to have a relationship with now as an almost 50-year-old woman, he's been married 5 times. And my mom was married 3 times before I was 10.
Wow.
And all of those relationships were abusive. They were all unhealthy. In fact, before I met Jesus in my 20s, I didn't know any hearts that weren't broken. The only kind of heart I ever knew was a broken heart. Broken promises, broken families, broken marriages. And so to be able to do what I do now is just wild.
Redemptive.
It is. And I mean, we get engagement announcements in our community and in my student body every week. And
so exciting.
And not the toxic, fast kind of, well, there's 2 types of marriages that happen fast. The toxic, undeniably crazy, unhealthy ones. And then the undeniably supernatural ones, right? And so we specialize in the second kind.
Yes.
Not that we don't have some of the first, because I don't know.
I want you to go into detail on what it is that you do for those who might not be familiar with you. Like, walk us through who you are, what you offer, what you do. Because I'm telling you, I wish I had known you when I was preparing for marriage. I mean, the Lord in his goodness prepared me, but man, the tools that you have are so incredible. And I have so many single friends who are a part of your program, have read your book, have gone through it. I actually have a friend who's getting married this weekend after doing your course.
Yes, I think I know exactly who that is.
It's so exciting. And so I'm just a huge fan of what you do and what you're bringing to single men and women. Having been a single woman for so long and knowing the pain that goes in that waiting process, man, to have the acceleration that you bring women is so beautiful. And I think pivotal for what's happening in the body.
I don't know.
Right
I like pivotable. I think I'm going to use, pivotable.
I'm classic for making up words.
Yes. I love that. I love that so much.
Yes. Tell us all about.
Well, you think about it, all words were just made up by someone.
That's true.
Have you ever just like said a word over and over again until it makes no more sense?
Yes.
Yeah. That's because someone made that up. Someone made that word up. So like I said, very unlikely. When I met Jesus in my 20s, just regular discipleship didn't work for me. I come from a really broken childhood. And so had lived in a girls' home. That the sign over the girls' home that I lived in literally said, "Home for unwanted children." So I lived there, and then I went into foster care situations, all my belongings in a garbage bag. Like, none of that's, you hear people talk about that. That's real. And then I decided I was better off on my own, as in my late teens at 17, I just ran off with a guy and tried to just make my own way. And because I felt like I'd been doing that all my life anyway. And so, he wasn't a bad guy. He just was kind of bad to himself, really self-destructive. And he actually is not alive anymore. And I think that had it not been for God, I probably wouldn't be alive as well. But I didn't know he was looking out for me, but he was. And when I was in my 20s, 20 years old, with all that bad information from childhood, I got married. And I ran down that altar, past every red flag in the world. I thought it was like the Daytona 500. I'm like, woo, it's fun, let's go. And got married to a boy who didn't know what he was getting into. And within a year, we were separated, getting divorced. And within a year and a half, I met Jesus. I had a radical conversion driving my car. Just kind of asked God who he was, and he answered. And in just a very radical way, just a longer story that I can't get into, because it would just take too long. But then you go into a place where, okay, I need to learn about this experience and this encounter that I had. But the things that I was being taught about that encounter and experience, and the ways that I could walk out of all the dysfunction of my life and into this big abundant life, that John 10:10 experience, like the good, right? The good, it wasn't working. And so God downloaded to me something that I call the heart work. And it saved my life. It was a tipping point of getting all that amazing, great information of the truth of who he is and who I am, that identity piece from my head to my heart, and really getting rooted and grounded in that love. And so it took a long time. I don't want to make it sound like it happened overnight, because it didn't. It took decades. But I began to teach somewhere in that process it to other people who that traditional discipleship wasn't working for. Like, oh, just go get prayed for, or go get the hands laid on you, or fast, or all those things are probably great in and of their own right, but none of that worked for me. And it doesn't work for a lot of people, because that are like me because they just have so much bad information, and all those things have to be unpacked. They can't be erased, but they have to be replaced. And there's a way to do that. So I started teaching heart work. And then in pandemic, and I guess I shouldn't leave this out, I've always been the matchmaker. Even though I had never seen any good representations of relationships, I was always fixing my friends up, especially after I met Jesus. I helped 15 of my friends get married.
Wow.
I know. Like, you were not safe near me if you were single. Because I was going to want to know, like, why are you single? Do you want to be married? You know, even though I had failed miserably at that, I got divorced when I was 32, but then I did walk out in my front yard even before the ink was dry on those papers and married my next door neighbor. Okay. Still in the process of heart work. So when I met him the first time, I yelled at him. I ripped his head right off because I thought he was a sex offender. Yeah, heart work was not complete. I had gotten an email that very morning saying that a sex offender had moved in my neighborhood. And guess what? The U-Haul was in the driveway and he was moving in. I'm like, oh, 1 + 1 = 2.
Hilarious.
And I have a 5-year-old daughter, so I'm going to let this dude know I know who you are. Okay. And so I told him, hey, buddy, listen, I'm your neighbor and this is my daughter. And if she's ever playing with your kids, like, she's not allowed at your house. She's not allowed around y'all. I literally said that to him. And another neighbor was watching who I had been trying to get to go to church with me. And she was like, what the hell's wrong with you?
Oh my goodness.
She's like, that dude's a Christian. She said, I talked to him like for 2 hours this morning. She's like, aren't you supposed to be a Christian? I'm like, oh no.
Oh my goodness.
Oh no. And so I went and apologized because I told her about the email. She's like, that's not the person. And I went and apologized. And then we had a carpool situation because our kids went to the same summer program. And somehow this man still fell in love with me. And from the time I yelled at him to the time we got married, 8 months.
Wow.
Right. And that was 17 years ago. So I think we're going to make it. Pretty sure we're going to make it. But with all that bad information and all the, no one says when I grow up, I want to be divorced. But that happened to me. And that was after I met Jesus. I think we do people a disservice when we're like, hey, you met Jesus. Everything's better now. That's not true. You're going to have to unpack those things. You're going to have to deal with stuff. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind, or that can be interchangeable, the word mind there, with the healing of your heart. Right. And so I started teaching heart work. And then in 2020, before pandemic, before that toilet paper shortage, before any of that stuff, there was a Christian man shortage. And I started noticing it, and God said, hey, what if you took your heart work and you paired it with your love to matchmake? What if?
What if?
Both of those words.
What if indeed?
Yes. I mean, the word what and the word if, both of them are just like so harmless. But if you put them together, your whole life can shift.
It depends on the context, though.
Right. No, either one way or another, it's going to shift, right? So it's like, what if? What if? And so I was like, what if? And so I threw it out there. I called it Married in 12 Months or Less because I just like to be controversial. Right. And it exploded. And maybe a month later, pandemic happened, shutdown happened. And now I had a captive audience.
Yeah. Because everyone's like, how am I going to meet somebody when I'm in my bedroom?
And then no one, and people hate, like, I call it Swimming with the Sharks, online dating. And so it exploded because no one wanted to do that. There's got to be a better way. And, there's no good men left, just like no more toilet paper. And I was able to unpack all those ideas for people as they were captive in their homes. And then it's never stopped. I will tell you, I'll be honest and say there were times when I'm like, okay, the world's spinning again. It's not going to continue. This is going to be the end of it. People are going to get back out there and do their own thing. No one's going to need me. And for the last 4 years, a little over 47 months, we're upwards towards 1,000 marriages and engagements and marriages. And that does not include all the people that are in my marriage funnel, I call it. That are in some sort of marriage-minded courtship as a result of my program and my coaching or my matchmaking, because I do matchmake people in this program.
I love that.
And outside of it. And we have engagement announcements practically every week now.
That's incredible.
So it's just like I gave it my yes, and I've learned so much in it. I wasn't like some dating expert beforehand. In fact, quite honestly, I never really dated. I was married twice, and I met my husband in my front yard. So my second husband in my front yard. So people are like, well, what makes you an expert? Well, I have some downloads, and I have some ideas of what it looks like to attach and connect. I'm a former avoid and attach. So I know what it means to not feel the feels like you're talking about, because you have to heal the feels. You're not going to feel the feels until you heal the feels. And the anxious attachers, those that, grab a hold of your leg and they won't let go because they're afraid that they're never going to get someone else or another chance. Like there's just so much that goes into it. And so we have divine revelation and wisdom, and I think we have undeniably supernatural results.
You do.
Yeah.
You absolutely do. Like I said, so many friends. I'm trying to send you everyone I can. I'm just like,
love it.
Have you heard about Jackie? Have you heard about Jackie?
Yeah, I heard that people come to me and they're like, yeah, I was in the bathroom, at the restaurant talking about, the latest guy that broke up with me, and some woman comes out of the stall and says, have you ever heard of Jackie Dorman? And I'm like, whoa, I'm famous in bathrooms. Let's go.
It's so real. And I always tell people, tell her I sent you. I mean, I get zero kickback for that, but I just want you to know I'm the one who told them.
No, people do tell me that you sent, and I really do appreciate that. And guess what? Now I get to send people to this beautiful place of healing and processing, because look, you cannot heal until you process.
Yeah.
And so teaching people to process, and I feel like this is just the beginning. I feel like this is going to turn into something even bigger.
Yeah.
And to help people sort through and keep what's good and learn from what was not so good. And because I love, like, for instance, Mulholland, that didn't turn into the love story, but it definitely is a chapter of the love story.
Oh, 100%.
All of it's a chapter of the love story.
Yeah.
Right.
It was such an important thing to go through.
No Jake and Emory.
Yeah.
It's part of it. It's a brick in your wall.
Absolutely.
It's a paver in
and
your
even
road.
with Spring Love, you're talking about the attachment styles.
Yeah.
I mean, part of what I contributed to the breakdown of that relationship was anxious attachment. And in writing, I did
not like to be smothered or mothered.
No. And I didn't.
Everyone out there
I
needs to
didn't
hear
even
that.
catch what I was doing.
Right.
And it was in the writing of the poem that the Lord, because the Lord's so kind and so gentle.
Yeah.
And he just brought self-awareness.
Yeah.
And he was like, here was the part that you played. Like, here were the
I
things.
love that.
And so it was in the processing, in the writing. And even I have another one called The Sadness is Palpable, which is also from that breakup. Just another, iteration of my processing, and just going, okay, what do I do with the sadness? Like, what's an appropriate way to process grief?
Yeah.
Because I was so unhealthy in previous relationships. I would go through a breakup and I wouldn't date for 6 years. I had a pattern, a 6 years pattern.
Whoa.
And this was the relationship where I went, if I want to get married before 40, I can't do that again.
Yeah, I can't afford 6 years. I can't.
I was like, I have to deal.
I can't go and sit in the corner
with
for 4
this
years.
unhealthy cycle.
Yeah. No, for sure.
And so it was in writing these poems, the Lord was like, okay, we're going to deal with the cycle and identify all the fears that you've had.
Yeah.
And why are you anxiously attaching? And my relationship with Jake, with 2 breakups here, could have triggered all the anxious stuff. But let me tell you, the Lord walked me through it and said, here is what secure attachment looks like. Even though, he is in his process, you get to choose how you respond here.
Right.
And you can respond strongly and securely and confidently.
Because the only difference between secures and anxious and avoidance is that they don't make everything about them. They understand that other people have a process, and the people are in it, and you can't hurry people through it, and you can't make them not be in it, and but there are so many internal processors, and one of the biggest benefits I see to this is helping people get it out. I always say better out than in. Get it out, and like you said, you can actually preach to yourself. You can bring healing to yourself, because if you process what's inside of there in a way that you can either hear it or see it, then you're going to see things in that processing. How many times have you been talking to a friend and you're talking out loud about a situation that you're all confused about or all twisted up about, and you hear yourself say the answer?
Yep.
How many times?
Oh, so many times.
That's why counseling and therapy is so great, because really that counselor is getting paid to sit there and let you externally process, and you tell yourself the answer. They don't tell you the answer. You tell yourself the answer. And so this is a creative way of doing that and allowing that beautiful healing to come.
Yeah.
I love this so much. So what do you, as we end, want to tell all of the specifically either not just single girlies and single guys, honestly, because, there's some guy listening to you on repeat while he's sleeping, you know, but also the people that find themselves in a marriage or in a relationship right now, and it wasn't what they expected because maybe they still need to heal some more. You know, maybe it's not the relationship, you know, maybe it's you in your heart, right? What do you want to say to those people um about, you know, not just this audiobook, but about their own creative process and bringing healing to themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say the journey towards self-awareness and self-discovery is priceless. And taking the time, and I feel like that's a lot of it, is taking the time and then also being afraid of what surfaces. Those are probably the two things that keep people from going down this path. But if you are willing to sacrifice the time, and if you are willing to experience uh, a brief amount of pain that will then release into relief and healing and moving forward in a lot of joy.
I love that.
Then
Release into relief.
Yeah. I mean, because just think about it. When you are in pain and like a physical thing, you know, you have the ouch, whatever the ouch is, but then you know, go through the initial healing process and you get the antibiotic on it or the Band-Aid on it. And you're like, oh, okay, that like initial stab is gone. That stab doesn't last long. It really doesn't.
It doesn't.
But then once you get the ointment in, once you get the Band-Aid on, once you experience the scab coming in, like you would then are going, oh, this is getting better. It's not nearly, and you're never going to feel that, you know, sharp pain to that degree again.
Right. It's true.
And so if you can handle that moment, then you can get through to it just being a mere memory and walking in so much wholeness.
Yeah.
And so I would just really encourage anyone, no matter what, it could even be relational dynamic with yourself, you know, like some cycle you're perpetuating, or, you know, a marriage relationship or dating, whatever, you know, whatever it is, pursue wholeness. I mean, if I had not been willing to reflect on that last breakup with the guy in LA and become aware of the contributing factors I brought to the table and the demise of that relationship, I would have perpetuated them and still be single.
Yeah. And the thing is, you'd still be in pain.
And I would still be in pain.
Because there's the pain of change, and then there's the pain of staying the same, which is forever.
Absolutely.
So where can people find this? Where can they find the audiobook, and where can they find you?
Yes. So the audiobook is on Audible, and which is also on Amazon as well. And the book is available on Amazon in both paperback and Kindle. So those are all available there on Amazon. And then I am easily found on all the interwebs. So I have a website, emorycolvin.com. I still go by my maiden name because I was that for a really long time.
Of course, yeah.
So I've had that website.
You're a performer. You have to have that.
I know, yeah.
Yeah.
I've had the website too long to change. So emorycolvin.com on Instagram. I'm also Emory Colvin on Facebook, Emory Colvin Brave Words, and on TikTok, Emory the Poetess.
I love it. And what I want to suggest for people is not only for you to go look for Emory, but I think you should get the book, and then you should get the audio book, and you should let her read it to you and you follow along. I think that would be powerful. So thanks so much for talking to me today. It's been so good.
Yes, it's been such a joy.
Love you, girl.
Love you.
All
Thanks,
right.
Jackie.
Thank you.